Hello. So, I've been getting this question for a while now, and given how a lot of you are already friends or people we know since school or college or whatnot, I figured why not? So, book suggestions. Now, I don't give book suggestions or must read or uh, all of that for a reason, because when you tell people you should read this book, or when you tell people check this out or whatever, uh, you know that that's kind of very detrimental to the point of what reading is about, which is exploring different genres of book. So this is like a book I have of notes, began on 17 September 2016, completed on 15 December 2019. I have at any given point in time 3 to 4 active notebooks, and I have a habit of taking notes. So I'll take a note, jot down the date, and attribute it to whoever I heard it from or whatever they said, which led me to having that insight in the first place. So, to reiterate, I do not do book suggestions. This is just, to tell people what books I enjoyed in the past, enough to kind of go through them again or jot it down as some form of a note. Books that make you think, so to speak. So, the first book on here was What the Dog Saw and Other Adventures by Malcolm Gladwell. That was a fantastic book because if you don't follow the New Yorker, if you don't subscribe to the New Yorker, but you want to enjoy the works of Malcolm Gladwell on a regular basis, you just have this book, which is kind of a compilation of all the articles that he has written, the best ones. So he compares the Challenger explosion to the crash of Enron, all of this, which of course leads to Lehman, all of that. Fantastic read. It's not as detailed as the other works of Malcolm Gladwell, but if you like a summary type thing, What the Dog Saw and Other Adventures. Then we have 1984 by George Orwell. Obviously, I think this book is a must. Okay, I won't say the words must read, but yeah, this is a book you should check out for sure. Then you have Lady Chatelet's Lover by D.H. Lawrence. That's one of the most boring, smutty books I have read in my entire life. Like, at some point you're going to go, oh my god, get to the point, or whatever. So, read it if you are into classic literature, otherwise give it a skip. Then you have Jonathan Livingstone Seagull. I didn't really get what the hype was about with this particular one, but yeah, people did enjoy it. Then you have After the Quake by Haruki Murakami. After the Quake is like an anthology of sorts, written by Murakami sensei, and these are some of the most quirky short stories you'll read ever. So check it out if you're into quirky short stories or short stories that don't spoon feed information and stuff to you. Then you have What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. Non-fiction Murakami, where he talks about running, how he became a marathon and then a triathlon runner, all of that. And in doing so, he very subtly gives us some amazing life lessons. So worth checking out if you're interested. Then there's an interesting book, Methods of Persuasion, How to Use Psychology to Influence Human Behavior by Kolenda Nick. So if you don't want to read Kildini or Marx or all this heavy psychology, but you want a Spark Notes version of it, like easy but then not that easy as well, you can check this book out. It does psychology very well in the sense of a common everyday context. No fancy jargons, no references, all of that, just plain if you want to influence people, do this types deal. Then you have The Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. Interesting concept of invisibility using bioluminescence as a phenomena. So yeah, interesting non-fiction read. Then you have a tearjerker, which is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. Hits you in the feels in the realest way possible. So if you want to experience what readers experience when they are crying in public while reading a book, you can check any of Khalid Hosseini's works out. He tends to tug at the heartstrings. Then you have The Freedom of the Press by Abhi Sharma, which is an interesting essay because Animal Farm by George Orwell on its own is essentially very influential on its own. But when you have an essay that tops Animal Farm, you got to check it out. So yeah, The Freedom of the Press by Abhi Sharma was like an essay that preceded Animal Farm in one of the editions. Folio Society edition this was. I found it to be very interesting, so that's why it's in the notes. Then you have Love in the Time of Cholera, the perfect book for quarantining. I cannot do any spoilers, but Love in the Time of Cholera is one of those books where you're going to be glad that certain characters are going in quarantine. I'm not even kidding. And like, not glad in the sense of hush, the contagions are gone. No, glad in the sense of, oh, they are going to quarantine together. So, yeah, Love in the Time of Cholera by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Like, it's a Booker Prize winning writer. Okay, so right there, you've got your proof. You can invest your time in this one. Then one of my favorite people in the world, who we now know was a creepy creep, but again doesn't take away from the things that he taught, which is Richard Feynman. The book is What Do You Care What Other People Think, and that is precisely the sentiment of that entire book. It's like a little rant that Dr. Feynman goes on from page 1 till the last page. And when smart people go on rants, it is bound to be insightful, so worth checking out for sure. Then there is one of the weirdest books I have read, which is The Vegetarian by Han Kang. This is body dysmorphia written on paper in fiction form. So whenever you wonder why people make such a big deal out of overeating, undereating, bulimia, any sort of eating disorder, so to speak, we have a habit of writing it off, like they're overreacting or they're looking for attention or whatnot. What we don't realize is there's some deep-seated underlying psychological condition that kind of puts them in that place where they are either eating a lot or not eating at all. So The Vegetarian by Han Kang is about someone who's not eating at all, and the impact it has on the person and the family involved. So yeah, if you are into reading weird books, The Vegetarian by Han Kang is a good fiction you could check out. Convenient Action, Continuity of Change. It's a Narendra Modi book. I was surprised when I read this book. Pretty sure it's ghost written, cannot say for certain, but yeah, the focus on sustainability and how sustainability has been applied in various sectors across India. Again, we don't tend to popularize these things in our social and political dynamic because apparently it's not cool to be sustainable yet. But yeah, this book, this is some, I don't really remember when this book came out, but I got that book as a gift, so checked it out accordingly. And yeah, if you want to find out what was sustainability in India and where it is right now and where you could actually see sustainability in India, you could definitely check this book out. Then there is Rich and Pretty by Rumam Alam, which is I don't recommend that book, but it had some interesting statements about class and how people change, like the manic pixie dream girl trope, right? How we assume that they're going to remain like that forever, but they don't. They change, right? They fall in love, they get married, they have kids, and they become serious. So yeah, it's basically in book form, which is kind of boring, but Then there is Course of Love by Alain de Botton. Now this is, whenever the history of 2000 to 2000 100 is going to be written. I think Ilan de Botton is going to be one of those spiritual thought leaders. He's, I think, one of the first philosophers, modern philosophers, who came up with the term toxic positivity. And the course of love, again, it's like that entire before sunrise, sunset, midnight trilogy. It shows you the journey of love. The story about what happens after the movie stops, because that's real life. So yeah, if you're into real fiction, check it out. Then Cries in a Drizzle by Yu Hua. Yu Hua is one of those Chinese writers that fiction as well as non-fiction, it's gonna be insightful either way, because I don't really know how to describe Yu Hua's writing besides autobiographical. He mostly writes fiction, Chronicles of a Blood Merchant, Cries in a Drizzle, all of that. And yet you could see it. You could see he grew up in China, in rural communist mainland China. And on account of that, he has scars. And he has internalized all of those scars in his fictional narratives. So, Cries in a Drizzle is, again, another tearjerker. Then you have The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. It's one of those books written by African American writers for African Americans and for other races to understand what the African American community goes through in terms of racism. So Hate You Give is you have this African American girl living in an urban community who goes to a predominantly white school, and then one of her friends kind of gets affected by institutional racism, and then of course there are protests. So yeah, very informative in the sense that how little things kind of turn into revolutions very quickly. So fascinating fictional narrative. Then you have On Cecil Beach. So not really that insightful, but interesting. Then Bartleby the Scrivener by Herman Melville. And I didn't really understand this book the first time I read it. And book is the wrong term, but yeah, it was difficult to get. But once you do, it was such a joy to read. Then again, we have China in 10 Words by Yu Hua, which is a non-fiction book. Gives you major insight into communist China under Mao and then under Deng Xiaoping. So there's like a major paradigm shift, right, where you have communism and then you have rampant capitalism with undertones of communism to it. So fascinating shift there that you could experience in the non-fictional narrative. Then there is a TV show called Sports Night by Aaron Sorkin. I recommend all of Sorkin's work, even Molly's Game, but Sports Night was interesting. It wasn't renewed because intellectual content is sort of belittled and hit with bats in terms of TRP. So yeah, Sports Night only has one season, but that one season was good enough. Then there's Quiet Power by Susan Cain. Introverts love Susan Cain books for a reason. She makes introversion understandable to people who are not introverts. Personally, as an introvert, I feel like she stretched the narrative too much, like introverts are not helpless. Just because you act like people like to, embody that narrative of being a victim doesn't mean you have to. So Quiet Power was interesting in the sense of going into minds of introverts, but she presents introverts to be victimized by extroverts, which is not true at all. I know this personally as an introvert who has been adopted by many extroverts. So yeah, that was an interesting dynamic. Then The Black Swan by Nassim Nicola Taleb, one of my favorite non-fiction books ever, because it talks about the black swan, something that is there, like something that is there, you've heard about it in legends, the black swan, but you have never seen it with your own eyes. So you know it exists, but you don't know where. And then one day you see a black swan and you are like, oh my god, a black swan. So that narrative is essentially taken to explain so many things about our social and political lives, and how almost everything is either a black swan or what he describes as a grey rhino. Like the Lehman crash, the Bitcoin bubble, you could see it's a bubble, but still people kept putting money into it, and then they lost a lot of money. There were scams, etc. So these were initial black swans which turned into grey rhinos, and Wall Street kind of takes a lot of advantage from these black swans, and that leads to a lot of people losing money, a lot of people who actually needed the money, right? So interesting book, check it out. Then you have Christine Lagarde's talk with Trevor Noah. It was amazing to see somebody so influential talk to somebody who's a comic, and yet come out with insights upon insights. So yeah, to those of you who don't know, Christine Lagarde was the head of IMF. Now she heads the European Bank. So then we have the Total Money Makeover. Do not read this book. It was a waste of time. The whole moral of that book was don't be in debt. Like, no shit, Sherlock. Everyone knows that. Finally, we have, not finally, still a little bit more to go. But yeah, there's Moment of Lift by Melinda Gates. I don't know. It seemed like propaganda to me, where she kept upholding the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. I mean, of course, they've done a lot for the world, but they have also done some questionable things which are not highlighted, right? And the questionable things that they did, ironically, were not moments of lift. And when you write a book called Moment of Lift, you're supposed to highlight the moments when you didn't give a lift to people. So yeah, read it if you're interested to go into the mind of Melinda Gates. But like, to me, the book seemed ghost written, because you could see little shifts in narrative and writing style. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, check it out if you want to. There's Deception Point by Dan Brown. Read it. Don't read it, up to you. Similarly, Da Vinci Code as well. Conspiracy theories written very well. So he uses this fictional cult, Prior Adhesion, which ironically didn't really exist before 1990, and it originated in Paris. And to imply that Prior Adhesion has been something that exists since the birth of Christianity is major trolling. So it's an interesting book as a premise of the whole Jesus Christ narrative. But I can see why the Catholic Church was so angry at the book, because it uses propaganda as facts, which is very annoying. But again, it's a fictional book, so you are allowed to do it. Then there's a TED Talk by Yeonmi Park, who escaped North Korea, and she makes some very interesting comments about human conditioning. And to us, as people who are born in democracies, these things will never make sense because we were born in democracies. But when we talk to people who come from autocracies or who come from straight up dictatorships, or when you listen to them, you realize some of the things that we take for granted, in the sense that looking at someone lying dead on a street is something which horrifies the rest of us. But in North Korea, that is a very normal sight, according to Ms. Park. And you don't really realize these things about indoctrination until you come out of the indoctrination. So, very interesting insight, and I actually did a very interesting article after some of the insights I heard from her for a very named publication. So, check it out. It was thought piece. Then there are 2 TED Talks by Laurie Gauthier and Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Laurie Gauthier talks about how self-hatred is very ingrained into our social fabrics and how that shouldn't be the case. Interesting talk. Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a very nice talk on attention and creativity. And he says that how most creativity these days has become about attention, and that in itself has taken away from creativity. So you see online a lot of content looks the same. There's a reason a lot of content looks the same online. People want to grab attention, and to grab attention they're going to do the same things, because content formulas work for a reason, right? People like to watch familiar things. You're not going to relate to new stuff. So interesting TED talk from someone who's an actor, a popular one at that, who's going to come in this great movie by Aaron Sorkin called Trial of Chicago 7. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching that movie, and this TED talk was pretty good as well. Then there's Chronicles of the Blood Merchant, by Yu Hua. Oh my god, the stuff that people in China did when communism prolonged its stay in China, right? So initially when communism began, it was a period of prosperity. Because very poor people also started getting food from food banks. But how long can you sustain food banks that literally feeds everyone? It's impossible, right? In the absence of sustainable business models. And that is the narrative where Chronicles of the Blood Merchant begins. There's this man who is selling blood to help his family. Interesting book of fiction, which, as I said previously, Yu Hua, you could see it. He's writing from personal experience. So he probably knew someone who sold blood to survive in his past, because he was a dentist. He was forced to be a dentist under communist China. And then, he grew up and started writing and all of that. So yeah, Chronicles of a Blood Merchant, fascinating read. Then there's Heartless by Marissa Mayer, not the Yahoo CEO, but another Marissa. This was weird. I mean, I didn't really enjoy it, but you might. And lastly, we have Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. Great book. Again, tells you how a lot of narratives we have about life are in our head and not in real life. So using the fictional artist that he creates and his floating world, he makes great commentary, not just on some of the savageries that carried on in Japan under feudal rule before, of course, the whole Second World War thing wrapped up, to all the propaganda and its contribution to that entire situation. So yeah, interesting read. And these are some of the notes I have made on that. I mean, no point reading aloud all of this. But yeah, I get questions, what books should I read? And I don't recommend books ever. But these are the books I read, and these were my opinions on the books I read from September 2016 to December 2019. I'll share other books with you as well as soon as I'm done. And yeah, thank you for joining the live. Bye-bye now. Good night.